Okay, so as mentioned, Michael Tessarion is very familiar with the next speaker. They've embarked on an unbelievable project, creating some of the most well-researched content, but also some of the most dynamic content, because when you bring these two minds together, a lot has happened. But as many of you know, unto himself, David has been a warrior for truth for many years now, and his unique perspective coming from a background of martial arts and an understanding of the various elements of truth that many of us discuss and research on a regular basis. David has come to us with this absolutely brilliant perspective, and today's talk, I have no doubt, will be no different. I want to jump right into it all the way from BC. It's amazing any of us are here with all the delays and stuff, but from British Columbia, Canada, none other than the truth warrior himself, ladies and gentlemen, David Whitehead.
Thank you, Bob. Big round of applause for Bob Tuskin for sticking through on this. And thanks to all the volunteers and people that put this production together. I've run events myself. It can be quite the task to do this kind of stuff. And so hats off to all the people that have volunteered their time, their commitment to this event, to making it happen. And most importantly, to each and every one of you for showing up and supporting an event like this. These kind of events are rare, where we can share ideas, where we can express our opinions, where we can share research. And we might not always agree on everything, but that's okay. Because I hope we're all on the same journey. I hope we're all trying to find some meaning, find solutions, search for truth, knowledge, understanding, greater awareness, expansion of consciousness, all of these things. And in order to do that, we got to bring ideas to the table. We got to have debate. We got to have discussion. We have to entertain things we've never thought of before. And you guys could be doing a million other things than coming all the way to Philadelphia. Maybe some of you are local here. Some of you flew in like myself. But you could be doing a million other things than coming to something like this and contemplating these ideas. So hats off to you and thank you for supporting this event. It's very important that we do this. Now, the presentation that I have for you today, I've entitled it, it's a pretty dramatic title, I find, The Unslaved Warrior, The Art of Living Consciously in an Unconscious World. This is going to actually be somewhat of a personal presentation for me. And it's going to get a little personal with you as well, I hope. So we're going to go down this road of personal discovery together. And I thought that there's no way better to kind of start this off than to share a little bit about my background. And this was actually a picture my mom sent me the other night. And I thought it was kind of funny. And it brought me back to my days of duct tape and cardboard and Meccano. You remember those Meccano sets, those metal things you put together? I got very creative, and for some reason, I don't know why, for some reason, I was really fascinated with knights and with armor and with battle. And my parents just, they thought it was kind of weird. I would be drawing pictures of battle, always drawing pictures of these warriors. And I didn't really think of it as a kid as being something that was associated with beheadings and violence and blood and guts. I didn't think of it like that. As a kid, I was a shattered child. I don't want to get into my story. I'm not here to share that, but I just want to say that I kind of grew up in a lot of space of fear, depression, anxiety. This was a little earlier on, but it kind of blossomed from there into my teens, and it was a very challenging time for me. And I think what I saw in the warrior sort of archetype was the symbol of courage. And it was the thing that I was lacking, was that these guys were protected, and they were protectors. And obviously, if you study any kind of warrior or historical literature on different warrior cultures, I did a presentation last year at Free Your Mind where I kind of touched deeply on that. You can see that on YouTube if you want to follow up after this. But if you study those cultures, you'll see that there was differing ideas, but there was always this concept of you're standing up for something, standing up for justice. And obviously the warrior is, the symbol of the warrior is a courageous symbol. And so when I was a young one, I think that because I was very insecure in my environment, and I think all kids go through this on different levels. Like I have two young, beautiful daughters right now, and already I'm talking to my daughter, she's 5, and It's just amazing the conversations we're having. And she's telling me about her nightmares, and she's telling me about what she's afraid of, and we talk about it. I didn't really have a lot of people to talk to about this when I was young. I just had to experience it. My mom was suffering from a lot of health problems when I was growing up, so I was moving around and staying with different people, always in a foreign environment, separated from my mom. My dad was working shift work, so he did his very, very best, but I didn't get to have a lot of time with him. So I was already, if you study anything on psychology, it was already a very shaky ground to get started with to begin with. And I think that's what it was. I was right into the Ninja Turtles and all that stuff because it just, the whole warrior thing, the martial art thing, was a symbol of empowerment and a symbol of courage because it was something that I was lacking. And so as I grew up, I eventually started to study deeper into this concept of what it means to be a warrior. And I got this from doing more of the research into the martial arts. The martial arts being something completely separate from just training for military purposes to invade some country, take over, and enslave some people. That's usually what the image you get when you think of that term warrior. Am I right? Most people, you think warrior, it's not very spiritual. It's kind of violent. We don't want that, right? But for me, I was always seeing that historically, there's always been challenge. There's always been disagreement to the level that we would actually go on the battlefield and kill each other over these different things. You'd be fighting over land and resources, fighting over ideas. Religion played a huge role in this. My God is bigger than your God, or I've got the truth, you don't have the truth. So we're going to come over to your country, we're going to invade your country, and we're going to indoctrinate you forcibly with our version of what the truth is. And this is kind of the version of the warrior that we have. So my work has been to try to bring out the best of what I feel has been lost and misrepresented from these various very deep cultural traditions that exist in every culture. It's not just the Asian continent that came up with this concept of valor and morality and justice and truth and reason and intelligence and only going to battle when there's no other choice, the art of self-defense. This was the warrior in these cultures was actually sort of like the immune system of those societies. It was the thing that stood up when no one else would stand. It was the symbol of that. Because it seems like we haven't really agreed on much for a long time on this planet. And it's been to the point where it's led to a lot of war and destruction and chaos. But when I started reading the works of people like Bruce Lee, Morihei Ueshiba, Gichin Funakoshi, Jigoro Kano, all these masters and founders of various martial arts, they had a totally different concept of what a warrior was and what a warrior should be, what the ideal should be. And I broke that down in detail in my last presentation, so I don't want to redo that. So I do encourage you to go and check out the quotes and the references and the sources that I've put forward on this. It's really going to blow your mind. And I think it's very relevant. You might be asking, how's this relevant to me? Well, I think that in this time, we live in dangerous times if we don't know who we are. If you as an individual do not know who you are, if you as an individual do not know and understand your potential, if you as an individual don't have it in you, that fire to defend your freedom of thought, your freedom of movement, your freedom to experience joy and happiness and abundance in your life, then it's a dangerous time to not know who you are because of the amount of information we're bombarded with. We're in an information war. We're in a war it's a consciousness war. It's not just a physical war, although I know we just heard news that, they're striking Syria and there's all this crazy stuff going on. And the average person can look at all these things that you're going to hear about today, this weekend at this conference, and you can kind of go, well, what can I do? I'm just one person. What can I do to stop all of this corruption and evil? And I'm assuming if you're here in this room, you came to a conference like this because you're seeking solutions and you're seeking something that's going to help you get some idea of what you can do. So I really hope in this brief presentation that I can hopefully inspire you and leave you with something that you can do. And I'm always involved in my community and with other like-minded thinkers and trying to go to conferences like this, working with people like Michael and so many other great thinkers and speakers, trying to come up with ideas, trying to get people to open up their minds, to think differently. We work on that all the time, but you can never forget about yourself. You can never forget about being able to be a functioning, empowered individual first before you go out and try to fix the world. And I think that in many cases, because we've forgotten that the people that are going out to try to fix the world are breaking it even worse because the source is messed up. And so we've got it kind of backwards. And that's kind of what I want to break down here for you next. And so here it just says, courage fosters truth, and truth furthers courage. So the more that you study this, you go on this journey of trying to discover the truth. And that word, the truth, is kind of been used a lot. But the truth of what? The truth of who you are, the truth of why you're here living this life on this planet right now. Why are you here? I'm sure that's what brought you into this to begin with. And this has been a question of philosophy for millennia, since the beginning of human writing and putting things on, carvings. You go down to Temple of Luxor in Egypt, or you go to Ireland and you see the beautiful carvings that are all over those ancient stones, thousands and thousands of years ago. Thinking about existence, thinking about the stars and the heavens and astrology and astronomy and all the great sciences. And there's all this knowledge that human beings have compiled. And that knowledge is very sacred, I feel. It's something that's going to help propel us forward into the future. But if we don't have courage, if we don't have the courage to speak about it, to maybe disagree with somebody, to maybe stand up and be a little more self-assertive when you maybe hear somebody say something that was offensive or was out of line or whatever. If we don't have that courage in ourselves to deal with each other in this way, or to even deal with our own minds, then having the courage to go out and cause great change in the world isn't going to happen. So I had this saying up on the wall of my bedroom as a kid. And I used to hate it. My parents put it there, and I was going through a lot as a kid, like I was saying, and I kind of blamed it on them because I didn't know where else to blame. So anything they tried to do to inspire me, I was like, oh, it's from the parents. I don't want to hear what you had to say. That stupid saying's always up there. My friends would come over, and they'd see it up. They're like, what's this? I'm like, whatever, I don't know. But what is right is not always popular, and what is popular is not always right. I think everybody in this group, I don't have to really talk too much about this, but for those that might be watching this video or want to learn a little bit more about this concept, I think that the moment you step outside of the herd, of the average sort of mindset where most people are, sadly, they're sort of been conditioned to live in a robotic-like state. And great philosophers would tell you that that's what it means to wake up. That's what this process of seeking enlightenment and seeking awareness and expanding consciousness is all about, is to wake yourself up out of this just sort of, I'm just here to exist, just to get by, make ends meet, have a couple fun experiences in my life, and then die, and that's it. It's the only reason I'm here is just to exist. Just go walk in Walmart for a couple hours and just kind of take a gander around and look at the empty, hollow faces. I don't want to pick on everybody, but I mean, it's sad. It's sad. We sort of have this epidemic of unconsciousness. Would you agree? Unconsciousness. And so to go against what's popular, if the popular culture, like we suffer from an extremely denigrated culture right now here in the West. It's been hacked at bit by bit. We have a huge influx of cultural Marxism and other influences, the media. You could call it mind control, you could call it whatever you want, but it's an influence that is leading the mass of people over the edge of a cliff when it comes to psychological, physical, and spiritual health. And so what I thought about this, and I was like, we need a few things in order to survive on this planet. We need to have the first thing in order, which is our physical health. Your body is your temple, right? We all know this. But my question was, why did and why do people that I know do so many things that jeopardize that on a regular basis? Okay, and I'm not saying we all have to be extreme and all that kind of stuff, everything in balance, but there are things that we do subconsciously to sabotage ourselves. I don't know if you ever noticed this. I told you we were going to get personal, right? But I know this because I do this too. I'm not saying I'm outside of this. That we do a lot of things that we kind of tell each other tell ourselves these little white lies that turn into bigger lies, and then eventually you've created an entire construct of existence, a mode of existence that is not aligned with reality, that is not aligned with your inner reality or the external reality, which means you're living a synthetic reality. And I feel personally, I mean, just taking a look at the faces on these young kids today, I get the chance and the opportunity to work with kids of all ages in my martial art practice and in my health practice, is, working with kids of young age, teens, adults, and just seeing that it's an epidemic of a lack of understanding of what it is to be a self, what it is to be a person, what it is to be an individual. They're raised in a very collective-like mindset, and it's very empty. And I'll show you in a little bit about what the ramifications of that are and how serious it is when it comes to your mental health and even your physical health. So health is important. And we need to work on, I'm going to use some analogies of the body and the mind and everything else, because obviously in the martial art fields, this is something that's very, very important, is to have the proper health. Because if you don't have a healthy body, you won't have a healthy mind. And if you don't have a healthy mind and body, you're on your way out of here faster than you otherwise would have been. And you wouldn't have that ability to tap into your innate potential, that expression of who you are. It's there somewhere inside of you. You know what I'm talking about, that potential. And so what are we going to do to get through that and improve that? Well, we have to improve our health. Because we're in the middle of a war. We're at war. We're at war with ourselves. We're at war in so many ways. We have an information war, an energy war, a war on resources, a battle of the sexes, a war on freedom, a war on privacy. Can I just be alone in my room by myself without having every possible intelligence agency watching me just chill out in my bedroom? Like, what's so special about what I'm doing? Like, why can't I just have some privacy, Why are we fighting for that? Why is that even a discussion, right? To this level. Food. Is food the same now as it was 20 years ago when you talk to your parents or your grandparents? I can talk to my parents. I'm 35 years old, and I can talk to my parents, and they'll tell me, yeah, tomatoes 20 years ago, they were awesome. Tomatoes now, I don't know what the hell they are. They're not even tomatoes anymore, right? So we have a war. There's a race war, a cultural war. There's a war, all these things that are happening, a fighting, a struggle. And obviously it's a bad thing when there's casualties of those wars. And we talk about that. And we go, oh my gosh, there's so many horrible things happening. There's casualties of poverty and casualties of war, and people are being killed, and there's all this stuff. And the average person can go crazy thinking about how helpless they are in the face of that, because it seems like, psychopathy is the dominant mindset at the top, right? So how can the average person do anything about this? Well, we often forget that all of this starts with the war that I want to talk about, which is your internal battle. The worst form of violence that exists on this planet is not physical violence. It's horrible. That's horrible. I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying it's not the worst form. Because it's the effect. That's the effect. That's the world of effects. What about the world of causes? What's the causal force that produces that effect in the world? It's the violence we do to ourselves. And that's where I started to go. When I started to read these great masters, read these philosophies, and have access to information that I never had access to before, I started to get a bigger picture of what the real source is. If you really drill it all down, all this drama we see happening in the external world, it's important. We need people fighting for it. But we're not going to make any headway, and we're going to keep running this hamster wheel until we address this crisis of consciousness. So the warrior that I'm presenting to you today is more of a spiritual warrior. The warrior that is the guardian of your mind. The warrior that stands and protects your consciousness in the way that your immune system in your body, if you feed it the right nutrients, the right micronutrients, macronutrients, antioxidants, etc., if you give your body what it needs, it will thrive automatically. It will thrive. One of the best examples of that I heard was if you take like a volleyball or something and you're in a pool and you just put it on the surface, it's just going to float there because that's its natural state. It's buoyant. And I have to go and take a lot of pressure and energy to grab that ball and stuff it under that water, and I have to hold it, and I got to sit there, and I got to hold it, and I got to put all this work into holding that ball underwater in order to keep it there. And the moment my hand moves a little bit, it wants to pop right back up to the surface. So I felt as a kid and in my teens going through grueling fits of depression and all kinds of things that I had to deal with, my inner struggle. was that I felt like that. I felt like I was being suppressed, like I was enslaved, like I was in chains. And I know many of us feel that on different levels. And so I'm like, well, but my natural state wants to be happy, wants to be healthy, wants to express myself. And don't worry, we'll get to Bruce Lee in a minute. I see some of you guys looking at me talking about expression. But I really wanted that. I really wanted to be able to escape that. But what happens, and this is the sad thing, if you study any of the great psychologists and the work on consciousness on that level, and you study, the tripartite axis of the brain, how your brain is actually structured in a physical sense, and then you understand, the consciousness that's animating your body, that's animating these brilliant tools that you have to interface with this reality. When you understand that, you realize that to want to escape bondage is one of the most primal, instinctual things that we have, that we don't want to be naturally. Nobody's volunteering to be lining up and saying, I would like to be put in chains and thrown into Alcatraz. Please, sign me up for that ride. I'd love to get the 3-day pass for that one. That would be great, right? Nobody wants to do that because it's against our nature. So I think that these systems that get built throughout history, they do other little subtle things in the background, in the subconscious realm, to try to convince us that slavery is better than freedom. And if you hear the discussion right now that's happening, even in mainstream academia and science and whatever, there's this school of determinism that is rising back up again, of moral relativism that's saying, well, you don't really have any free will. Your genes, all the process in your body, your brain, everything, it's all pre-programmed. The decision you were going to make 20 years from now, there's nothing you could do to change it. It's coming. That pizza you were going to order 25 years, you're still going to order that pizza the same way. Nothing you can do. No different change, no choices, nothing. This is actually seriously being discussed. And it's because of the way science views the body. They view it compartmentalized. So they look at I got my hands, okay? My fingernail doesn't have any free will. It does an automated function. It just keeps growing. I got to keep clipping that thing all the time, right? My finger doesn't have any free will. It's doing what my brain is telling it to do. My hands, my feet, if you were to take all the different parts of your body and break it down, you could look at that and go, well, all those things are automatic responses, so therefore we must not have free will. But then we're forgetting who's driving the boat, who's driving this, who's making this happen in real time. Like just right now, if you just touch each one of your fingers to your thumb, you're doing that in real time without delay. There's no Skype signal, Wi-Fi interference. There's no, it's just instant. And there's many other arguments I would have against determinism. I don't want to spend the whole time talking about it, but I just wanted to bring that up as one point where there's ideas that change the flow and direction of entire societies. And those ideas can be really, really good and really empowering and bring society to a positive place, or it can be detrimental to our health on all levels and lead us to a robot future, which we all see coming faster and faster, if you're paying attention. But I'm not as concerned about all of that as I am about the state of mind that a lot of people are finding themselves in, that they're losing this war of consciousness, and they're losing it against themselves. And there's a lot of external pressures. This world is a crazy place. I'm a parent now. I've got 2 kids, and I'm like, rough place to raise kids. You go to any other parent, and you're going to have 27 things you don't agree on because there's like a billion different ideas on what your kids should eat, what time they should go to bed. My wife and I talk about this all the time. And it's really hard to just kind of say, I know what I'm doing. I've got some trust in my opinion here, And I know I'm helping my kid raising my kid to be healthy and strong, but then you're constantly pulled in so many different directions. That's one factor. The other factor could even be environmental. The amount of toxins that we're exposed to from food, from air, from water, from blah, 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 blah. I could go on and on and on. You guys know. You guys know what I'm talking about. There's that. But then there's the one thing that nobody really talks enough about. And that is the lack of self-esteem that many, many, many people suffer from. Especially right now, our kids and our youth, the teens. Just suffering on epidemic levels. Apparently today, the World Health Organization has declared it World Health Day, just so you know. So April 7th is World Health Day, and they released some new studies where they estimate in America alone, about 350 million children and teenagers alone are suffering from and are diagnosed with clinical depression. Now, I think that these numbers are actually much larger. I think there's different spectrums. Everybody suffers from it in different ways. And they look at it as some kind of a disease that you just get. Like, it's like, oh, I got a flu. Oh, I got depression. Wow. Like, that's the way they talk about it. So then what do? Oh, you got the flu? Here's a flu shot. We'll just inject more flu into you, and hopefully your immune system will learn how to fight it, and then you'll know how to fight all the flus. But it's not working out too well, because everybody's still got the flu, and actually their flus are getting worse. So the same thing they do with depression. They go, oh, and this is what they did with me when I was in my teens. They're like, here, try some Paxil. Here's some Ativan. Here's some other crazy drugs that are legal if I prescribe them to you. And let's see how that goes. And that just made the problem worse. Maybe temporarily, I feel like I'm just like a bag of water sitting, like just floating there like an amoeba or something, not really living in it at all. But at least I'm not in pain. So I'll just trade life as I'm supposed to live it for just this sort of Band-Aid effect. And this is what they're doing. And what's crazier is when you look on the bottle and the labels and the inserts of these psychotropic drugs that they're prescribing, what's the number one thing they're warning you about? They're like, this drug may cause suicide. This drug may cause more depression. This drug may cause, and you sit there and you watch these commercials of these drugs they're pumping out, and they're giving them to kids. They're even giving them to dogs. They're giving dogs Prozac. My dog's depressed. I've been away too long. I went to the Free Your Mind conference for 4 days, and I came back, and my dog was so depressed. And the doc's like, oh, just give him Prozac. It's the new thing. It works great. And this is the mindset, guys. This is the mindset. So, and there's many other factors. I don't want to hang out here too long, but I just wanted to say that there are many factors that contribute environmentally and externally to this epidemic of depression and anxiety and a lack of self-esteem. But the lack of self-esteem, the foundation of courage, the foundation of these tenets of the beauty of humanity, the beautiful things that we're capable of, the beautiful philosophies that we should be teaching our young ones, young kids especially, and the adults that need it too. They've been lost. They're not out there everywhere to be experienced and expressed by people or accessed by people. So what I try to do in my work with martial arts is to say, okay, well, we have these ancient philosophies, these ancient disciplines for how to tap in to your potential against all odds, against all the doubts you're going to throw at me and all the arguments you're going to give me. Oh, I'm too old. I got a bad back. My leg is sore. My knee is sore. I did martial arts when I was a kid. I got my yellow belt, but then I quit. And so I think it's too late for me to start again. And it's just, you just hear, I sit there and I just kind of wait. I got like timer on. I'm like, okay, well, another 30 seconds of this guy's excuses. And then I'm going to say, do you just want to try the class? You want to give it a shot first? Let's give it a shot. But what I see is actually that a lot of people are just, it's natural. We're afraid to try something new. Humans, we don't like change. Change is bad. Just like, I don't want change. Even if change would be good for you, I still don't want it. Like I talk to people, I'm like, man, if you come and train in my martial arts class, you're gonna have more energy. You're gonna have those washboard abs that you want. You're gonna be a badass. You're gonna be in shape. You're gonna be healthy. You're gonna be empowered. And they're like, yeah, that's cool. I don't think I can do it. And I'm like, you're 45 years old. Like, how can you not understand that if you just start doing something, you're probably gonna suck at it in the beginning, but you'll start sucking less as you go. And then eventually you'll just reach like a midline of suck, and then you'll start going okay, and then great, and then amazing, and then excellent, and then phenomenal. And that's what it takes. So along with this thing that we have about not wanting to change, we have this thing about not wanting to work for anything. We have this thing about it's got to be instant gratification or nothing. I got to get my food through a fast food drive-through, and I've got to get all my apps instant. If my connection stalls for a second, I'm like, oh, this phone, I had to wait an extra second for that app to download. Like, we want it now. We want it now and fast and big. And it's like as big and as many lights around it as possible. And I'm having this conversation with my 5-year-old daughter right now about this whole like, okay, we have to wait. There's a time for certain things. And she's like, no. And I'm like, well, yes, you have to wait. We have to be patient. She's like, no, I want it now. And I'm sitting there going, okay, so this is a natural thing that we all go through as kids. As children, that's what we go through. Not as adults, hopefully, right? So I have to, with my work, I have to kind of work around these things. And as frustrating as it can sometimes be, because I see a bigger picture. I've conquered these fears. I've been down this road. I've sucked for a long time at training martial arts until I got better at it. And I know the road. And so I see the big picture, and I'm like, just hang on with me. Keep showing up. Keep training. Don't give up on me. And I just constantly have to battle excuses, but I see that in there is actually a virtue. And the virtue is that every human being, no matter what culture they come from, no matter what sex they are, no matter what the age is, we all want freedom. We want freedom from that feeling like we're not worth anything, that we're inadequate. And I would define this concept of self-esteem as really just your basic means of being able to survive and understand that you're capable and that you're effective in life. You're effective at life. The knowledge that you're effective at life is very empowering, because it's not saying you're going to be perfect at life. It's not expecting perfection. It's not expecting instant gratification. It's saying self-esteem is something that's made through the struggle. The struggle is what builds that. So the struggle is what builds this warrior. And the struggle here, just again with the depression, it's the war of the mind first and foremost, because everything you produce in the physical world starts here. And starts here. It starts inside of you. And then you manifest it into the world. So if the signal is distorted internally, what do you expect externally with your relationships, with your family? When you see all the corruption we talk about with the government and all this stuff, like, are we surprised when we don't have a culture, we don't have a large presence of philosophy and reason and evidence and truth and justice and all these great things? We don't have that embedded and ingrained in us from birth. In fact, we have the opposite of that embedded in us from birth. And as I was relating to the health concept before, when you give your body physically everything that it needs to have energy and to function properly, it functions better and you feel great. You sleep well, you have energy. And the same thing is true with the immune system of your consciousness, your conscious immunity. And that is where we get into the discussion of slavery. So I said this is about unslaved. This is the title of the podcast that Michael and I started. And guys, if you haven't listened to these shows, you got to go check it out. We've done, I think, 22 episodes. And we talked about in the first episode what it meant to be unslaved. It's not even actually a word in the dictionary. It's just I think it was based off of a metal band, Enslaved. And we just, unslaved, it's perfect. And how do we unslave ourselves, right? And so I like this picture of the mind being in chains. And it's us, yes, society, yes, influences, yes, all of these things, but ultimately, we're the ones holding the key. We just got to figure out how to grab that key and put it in the keyhole and turn the key and get the chains off and then start living our lives the way we're supposed to. This is the puzzle. And it sounds easy, but it takes a lifetime of mastery, especially in a world like this. So I told you we'd bring up Bruce. He's my hero. He was, I first started watching some of the Bruce Lee movies as a kid. I wasn't allowed to watch them because my parents thought, they're too violent. We don't want you watching that. But I would sneak over to my friend's place, and we would go in there, we'd watch the movies. And the fighting was great and everything. I was like, oh yeah, it's very masculine and he's so tough. But I loved the parts when he was talking about, I love the talking scenes. I love when he was trying to bring the philosophy, like, it's a finger pointing to the moon. Like, I love that stuff. That's what I was into, right? And it inspired me to train martial arts. I'm like, I got to do this. I have to do this. I used to be building shields out of tinfoil and duct tape for years. I'm an expert at this stuff. I'd be good at it. So I begged my parents, please, can I sign up? Please, can I go train? And they'd be like, no, I don't. I think it's too violent. They meant well. They wanted to protect me. They just didn't understand. So it actually was an interesting thing, because as a kid, I'm like, my parents, they don't get it. They don't understand me. They don't want me to have fun. I want to go with my friends to karate. I want to be a badass, but they don't want me to be a badass. And I'm like, then I kind of sat and I said, okay, well, how about this? I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to prove them wrong. And that was my first experience with the warrior energy, was to say, okay, I met a challenge. I can cry about it. I can feel sorry for myself about it, or I can do something about it. That to me is the difference. I can do something about it. And so I did it. And I started going to the library and sneaking out all the martial art books I could find and reading all the philosophy. And there was a book by Bruce Lee, which was a collection of his notes, and it was called Striking Thoughts. And it's a beautifully written book. And what it is a compilation of a lot of the stuff that he wrote down. And then I came across this other book on Jeet Kune Do. And then I found some of these other masters and other martial arts. And I started comparing it. I'm like, wow, there's some really amazing things. My parents would love this if they really knew what it was really all about. And so I eventually showed it to them. And then I was training out of the books. They got those books with like step 1 through 50 on how to do a front kick or whatever. So I'd be in the backyard, and I'd make sure no neighbors are watching. My mom was sleeping. Okay, my dad's at work. Nobody's seeing me. And I'm like, okay, can I just kick like this? Start kicking it back, looking around, right? And then eventually that turned to trying to do jump kicks. And then it started turning into me, climbing up on my garage roof and trying to do jumps from flying side kicks off the roof. And then it started to, there was one moment where I was in my garage and there was all this stuff lying around the ground and I was really pumped up. I think I had some like old Rocky music playing in there. And I was like, yeah. And I'm training and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get this flying side kick perfect. And I ran up and I tripped on the way up to do the kick. And I went flying through the window and I had like 3 planes of glass go right through my arm. And I still have a couple scars in there. And so at that point, I'm like, Mom, I was trying to do martial arts and you told me not to, and I cut my arm and it's almost decapitated, but can we go join karate? Because they got signups next weekend. And she was like, okay, let's go to the hospital. And then they had a talk. And eventually they said, okay, let's just get this kid in something. At least he'll have some supervision. That's the main thing we need for this guy. So the whole story of that was me kind of forcing my way into doing something that I didn't know why I was always into this whole warrior thing and martial arts thing until later when I found out it was because I had a deficiency. I was suffering from a deficiency. And instinctually, a human being suffering from hunger of something is going to go, there's some berries. I'm going to go eat it. Like, I need to do something about that deficiency. Well, I, as a kid, was going, I'm missing courage. I'm missing empowerment. I'm missing confidence. And I see in these warriors that I'm studying, in these masters, I'm seeing all of those things, and I want to be that. So what really struck me later, this is something I got into later, because it's very superficial in the beginning when you enter something like this. You just want to be good at the techniques. So I did a lot of technical training in martial arts and really got good at that. But it just wasn't enough. And I was always bugging my senseis. I'm like, hey, what's the real esoteric advanced philosophy class of martial arts? Like, do you have anything like that? Like, how much a month is that? I want to do that. And they're like, what? It's the 7 principles on the wall. Like, that's good enough. Just bow for respect, and there you go. There's your philosophy. I'm like, well, I think it's more than that. And I would have arguments with my senseis, which is pretty awkward, right? I'm a little green belt. No, sensei, it's supposed to be like this. And they're like, silence. Get this kid out of here. This kid who's thinking for himself, God forbid, what's he doing? And I came across this quote from Bruce Lee, and it changed my life, where he said, where some people have a self, most people have a void, because they are too busy and wasting their vital creative energy to project themselves as this or that, dedicating their lives to actualizing a concept of what they should be like, rather than actualizing their potentiality as a human being. I got goosebumps right now reading that, even on my face. It's crazy. Because it makes this statement here. Are you self-made? Can you claim that? Did you earn the title of being self-made in this life? Or how much of your life has been created for you by the herd? And by the herd, I'm not really trying to be derogatory. The herd could be just the people at work. The people in your family, the people in your friendship circles, the people you see most of the time. Society as a whole. Looking at all the millions of advertisements that your brain is hit with, whether digitally or on the subway or the bus or whatever, constantly, every day, day in and day out, you're not good enough. You need this product. You're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too tall, you're too white, you're too black, you're too sexy, you're not sexy enough, you're this, you're that. It's like you're constantly in check. It's like, okay, is there like hall monitors walking around here all the time checking to see if I'm cool enough? Like, that's what you start to feel like after a while. And then you start to believe it because there was not a foundation of self-esteem and who you were and all these principles I'm talking about ingrained in you from youth. And so now you're raising, you don't even notice that this is happening It's very subconscious, by the way. And only when you start to face it and go through the blood, sweat, and tears that it takes to realize this, will you start to see that, oh my God, I've got hooks in me all over the place. There are psychic vampires in my midst, constantly taking advantage of my energy. I'm not surrounding myself with people that I want to express myself with. I'm surrounding myself with people that I'm trying to impress, that I'm trying to prove something to. You got to prove yourself, Johnny. Screw proving yourself. What do you have to prove? You're alive. You made it here. Do you know the odds? Someone just calculated the odds recently. You know what the odds are of you even being here in this body right now? 400 trillion to 1. You could win the lottery every year of your life and you wouldn't have better odds than that. 400 trillion to 1. And just to be in this physical body. And that's why the Egyptians, they used to worship the body. Not because they were these pagan, but because they understood, like, it's a gift. There's a lineup to get in here, man. Okay, this is as crazy as it is and all the stuff that's going on earth, to be alive in its fullest sense, to actualize yourself as a human being is a gift. Even in this world, as twisted as it is. And we get so focused on the things we're afraid of and the things we're angry about, which is important. There's got to be a balance to that. We must have awareness of what's happening in the world. But what you will soon find out, we're not there yet. What you'll soon find out is that by studying the world, hopefully you've gotten around to the point that actually you're studying yourself. You're actually studying what's happening inside of you. Because you're studying your reactions, your emotional responses. You're studying your anxiety levels. You're studying the way that you talk to people about the information that you know. Are you grabbing people and like trying to choke slam them and force them to accept what you're saying? Or are you just being a positive influence and role model? What's more effective? You're learning about how to be effective at communicating advanced information, inspiring people. But you can't make it about other people. You can't just make it about other people. Because otherwise you'll start to give so much of yourself away that you'll have nothing left. So you got to put your own oxygen mask on first. And I love this quote from Martha Graham. She was a dance instructor. She said, "Movement never lies. It is a barometer telling the state of the soul's weather to all who can read it." And what she's saying there is that you can tell by reading body language, because she's obviously a dance instructor, she can see if somebody is actually tapping into that cosmic energy, that internal, vibrant, spiritual, photonic energy that we all have, whether they're expressing that organically. That's what they want you to do on stage in something like dance. They want you to, obviously within that particular style, express that spirit. That's what they want to see. As martial artists, and as Bruce Lee wrote endlessly about, he was sick of all the fixed stances and too much structure and count by numbers and, you know, the ABCs of martial arts to put people in these boxes. He was saying, forget the boxes, forget the belts, forget the styles. You're a human being. You have value, you have potential, and we'll show you the basics, but then you've got to take it from there. It's like an artist. We'll give you all the paintbrushes. We'll teach you about color and some hue and distance and all this kind of stuff. But then they're your paintbrushes. You paint whatever the hell you want. That's what it is to be alive. And that's what this world and this society doesn't want. Because now you're different. And people don't like change, remember that? They don't like change. They don't like things that are different because it's a threat. Because if you step outside the herd of people that are just satisfied just being a fraction of who they are, and you're like, no, I don't want to be a fraction of who I am anymore. I want to be like all of who I am. I want to know what I can do. And I want to do it. I want to express. I want to create. We have a desire to create. Not just breathe and live and exist, but to create. So I don't want to just go along with the herd. And the minute you step out, what's the herd going to do? It's going to scream at you. It's going to make fun of you. It's going to laugh at you. It's going to try to pull you back in with gnarled fingers. Get back into the herd. What are you doing? This is the safe way. Why did I just think of that? The grocery store Safeway when I said, sorry, I interrupt myself sometimes when I'm talking. So I'm going on this journey of learning all these concepts that I'm sharing with you. And I meet Michael Tessarian. And he, right away, he's like, oh, martial arts? You need to study Wilhelm Reich. I'm like, what, is he some great martial art master? Like, what, does he levitate or something? What is he? He's like, nope, never studied martial arts. He did a whole thesis. He was a psychotherapist. and he created a whole thesis on body intelligence and how so much of our psychological harangues are actually starting in the physical body as well. In men, there's this huge push to overly harden the body to the point where it's like these guys walk into the class, they're like, I can bench press 450 pounds. You don't have a chance. And they do something like jujitsu, which is very flexible and fluid, and they don't last 30 seconds. They're the first ones to gas out because they become a fixed structure of just rigidity. So it's not what they were hoping for, so they never usually stay. And Reich was talking about this hardening of the body as actually being a reflection of your mindset, that if your body is too stiff in the movements, it's not just because you have a bad back. You have a bad back because you probably have some wiring going on. You need to fix something up inside here that will eventually manifest into what can fix the body. And so Wilhelm Reich was saying even depression and anxiety and all these things we're talking about, the war on consciousness, their movement is the basic human function, the basic human thing. The first thing that happens, I've seen it happen when my wife had both of our daughters. Once they give that little pat on the bum, that kid just goes, bah! And just moves and makes sound and starts, that's the signal of somebody being alive. Obviously, when you go to a funeral and it's an open casket and you're seeing somebody that's there not moving, you're like, well, yeah, that's the dead guy, right? Because they're not moving. Something that is dead is not moving anymore. So something that is alive is moving. So here we are sitting in our cubicles, on our computers, eating all this crap, watching all this crap, listening to all this crap, starting to believe it. And then we're like, why am I sick? Why don't I have a zest for life? And those are the kinds of things that lead to the level of suicide that we see in the world today. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but if you were to count the casualties of all the wars in the last 20 years, all the genocides, all the stuff, and you were to calculate the death toll, it wouldn't even come close to the death toll of what suicide takes. So yeah, you got to read the book Democide, Death by Government. You got to know about that kind of stuff. You got to know about communism having 150 million casualties. That's being nice. You got to know about all these evils and the genocides in Africa and Rwanda and all the stuff with poverty and starvation. You got to know about that. There are solutions to those problems. We have to work on those things. But in greater numbers, we have people saying, I'm out of here. Why? Why? Why is that? Why are we giving up first? Even the soldiers coming back from these wars, they're killing themselves in greater numbers than they're even dying on the battlefield. To me, that's just it's an effect that's happening in the world that isn't just happening randomly. It has a cause. And the cause is this war on consciousness that I'm talking about. And if only people like Wilhelm Reich and so many others and the martial artists and the great warriors had a voice in our world, they would sit you down and they go, oh, you don't even know. You are the microcosm of the universe. What are you doing? Wasting your time worrying about what other people think of you, trying to be perfect, wherever that is, defined for you by your society, by your peers. When are you going to live? When are you going to define your own parameters? When are you going to be free? And here's the key to freedom. Freedom of movement. Start with moving your body in different ways. Do some dance, do some yoga, do some martial arts, do some Tai Chi. Even if I had a guy come into my school, he's missing a leg. And he comes in and I was like, hey, how's it going? You want some information? He's like, yeah, I'd like to train martial arts. And then he looks at his missing leg and I look at his missing leg and he goes, do you think we could do something? I'm like, I would love to train you, man. Come on in here. You can do it. Anybody can do it. If a guy with a missing leg can do it, you can do it. There's people that are in wheelchairs, and they work with their fingers. They work with what they can. They work with their eyes. They work with their mouth. They work with moving what they can. And the movement corresponding to particular thought patterns can create a massive change in your consciousness and in your psychology. And it's a brilliant, brilliant thing. And so Wilhelm Reich talked about psychotherapy through movement of the body. And I had a brilliant quote from him, but I can't see my notes, so we'll just have to do that in a video log soon. But definitely go and check out his work on this, and I thought it tied in very beautifully to what I'm sharing about the martial arts. It's about movement. And then the truth about the herd, the brick in the wall, Pink Floyd. You don't want to be another brick in the wall. And there's that story of the crabs. You ever heard the story of the crabs? You got the crabs that you put one crab in a bucket, and then, you give it a little bit of food, and it stays in the bucket, but it automatically would say, okay, I'm out of here. It would just crawl out of the bucket and leave. But if you had like 2 or 3 more crabs in there, throw some food, they eat the food. One of them tries to escape. All the other crabs are like, where do you think you're going? And they grab him and they pull him back in the bucket. And this is just like a natural thing that we see. And for some reason, there's this like thing that crabs have that they don't want to see one crab just get away with it. They're like, no, we're not all getting out of here. You're not getting out of here. And I think of that example because people can be like that. Because we live in fear most of the time. 90% of your conversation in your head is negative. 90% of the conversation you have about yourself is negative, which is why you prefer talking about other people. This is why most of the time when you walk to your average human being, you're like, hey, how's it going? How's the weather? Oh, yeah, this guy at work, and on you go. And there's no talking about how's your life, what's going on with you. So we don't relate to each other as individuals anymore. We relate to each other as a collective Borg already, just automatically in the cultural dialogue. So I'm trying to say break away from the herd, find your individuality, find who you are. Because if you don't do that, you're going to be lost at sea. You're not going to have any you're not going to have any recourse to take control of your life when something's going to happen where you're really going to want to. You're not going to have the fortitude. You're not going to have strength in those muscles. And another example about how we all have the equipment to do anything we want. Our potential is as limited as our mind is, okay? And I've seen this because I've experienced it in myself. And if I've raised myself out of the ashes, and I've raised other people out of the ashes, and I've seen people look me in the eyes and said, no, there's no way I can do this. And I say, yes, you can, and you will. And let's do it together. And then I watch them change, and I watch them prove themselves wrong again and again and again. The potential's there, trust me. But you have to make the choice. And that's where free will comes in. And that's one proof right there, the fact that you can choose to change your life. It destroys this idea of genetic determinism, as does the new exciting field of epigenetics, if anybody's ever heard of that. Go check out some Dr. Bruce Lipton and some other fantastic people that are now on the cutting edge of science that are saying, yeah, it looks like everything is conscious. The more we dive into matter, the more we see mind, actually. Right? Max Planck talking about the fact that the more we dive into the microscopic levels of everything, the more we're seeing everything. The more we're seeing mind. We're seeing intelligence. We're seeing energy. We're seeing photonic light. We're seeing incredible things. So when you know that's what you are, when the ancient scriptures from every culture in the world are telling you, ye are light, they're not bullshitting you. It's just mythological language expressed in their time. They might not have used photons and atomic, subatomic structures. They would have said, yeah, you're light, just like the sun. You would die without the sun. The sun provides photosynthesis for the plants so that they can grow and thrive. And when you're out on a sunny day, you feel like $1 million. Because, the sun is out, thank God. Even this time of year, like, we're all kind of sick of the rain clouds. We're like, bring the sun, right? Because light is inspiring. Light does something to us, even biologically and psychologically, most importantly. So break away from the herd mentality that says, I'll just go along to get along, and I'm just waiting to be dead. That's pretty much what I hear from most people, and it's sad. And my job is to rehabilitate them. So there's the urgent need in our society today for self-esteem. Because as I said, these are dangerous times to not know who you are and to not trust yourself. How many people in this room can honestly say, you don't have to raise your hand, I don't need to know, just this is for you, can honestly say that you trust yourself? You might have people popping in your mind. You're like, I trust Jim. He's a good guy. I trust Mary. She's good. But what about you? Do you trust yourself? Do you trust your mind? Do you trust your ability to process information? Do you trust your ability to recover from failure? Meaning, okay, I fell, I tripped, I made a mistake. That's not the end. I trust my ability to get myself back up and figure it out and do the work and learn it again and go back to the drawing board. Do you trust your ability to survive? That's what this question of self-esteem is asking you. That you are fit for life, that you have all the equipment to be anything you want to be, and that you can trust yourself when you know that it's okay to not be perfect. What is perfect? You are perfect. What's that song? Perfect Imperfections or whatever, John Lennon Legend or something? Think of your perfect imperfections. I have imperfections. My wife will tell you about all of them if you talk to her. But then I'll tell you about hers, so it's okay. We'll get even. No, but we all have imperfections, and it's okay. And when I started training martial arts, I found a lab, like a scientific lab, where I could experiment with this. And I could say, okay, there's this really advanced technique. It's a flying triangle. I want to know how to land it. How do I do it? At first 20 times I fell on my ass, looked ridiculous. The next few times I got some pointers, and I started getting better at it. And then I nailed it, but there was no way I was going to land it in like live sparring. So I had to so I reached a certain level, and then I had to keep developing it, and then try different setups, and then I had to learn how to mask it so they didn't see it coming, and then set it up, and then boom, I got the flying triangle. And then eventually I was just nailing it at will. And then there was one point in my one of my black belt exams. We had been doing a 3-day exam, 8 hours each day, ridiculous pace. By the end of it, they surround you with 6 black belts, and you basically have to spar them one at a time. And you're completely exhausted. And they're doing this to just put you to the end of your limits and just see where your limits are. And it's important that you know your limits. So you're kind of like, man, I can't even stand right now, and I have to fight 6 black belts. This is great. And I remember that moment. I remember just seeing blurs and hearing like, whoa, 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 I remember hearing that. And then just like, out of nowhere, I threw up this flying triangle, which is a very difficult move to do. It wouldn't even be that practical in a real fight. It's just like a fancy kind of movie technique. And it just kind of happened without me even thinking about it. I couldn't even think about what my name was at that point. I was so tired. And here I am pulling off this stuff. And we all have these little glimmers of this. Like, you're walking past the countertop and you accidentally brush the thing, and then the cup falls and you're like, whoa, that was some ninja shit right there. What happened, bro? Right? And you didn't think of it. It surprised you that you did something that you didn't have to sit there and go, okay, well, the wind speed of that cup and the angular momentum is this. You didn't have to do that. It happened naturally. It was instinctual. Something else just, boop, happened. Your biological intelligence just switched on. And so in martial arts, we're trying to get that spidey sense tingling as much as we can, because what we're talking about is expanding your awareness of danger, not to become obsessed with danger and walk around go, oh, this guy right here, he's going to come up and kick my ass. Better be ready, right? Not obsessed with everything, not becoming paranoid, but being aware of danger. And then from there, you're actually becoming more aware of all these things. Your driving improves. You're more aware of just walking in the park and smelling the roses and seeing the mountains or seeing the trees or whatever. You're more aware of other people and how they're interfacing with you. You just become, someone walks in a room and you just feel them walk into a room. You don't have to look at them walk into a room. These are things that used to be all magical powers and like the Power Rangers or something, but that actually you can train and you can develop. And so this was something that really boosted my self-esteem, because when you start playing with this and seeing, hey, I used to be really bad at something, and now I got better at it, and I learned more about myself in the process, that automatically boosts your self-esteem. But that process takes work. And that's what we've lost, is we don't want to do that. Again, we want that app that'll do it for us. So my question to you is this: what is your personal philosophy? We all have philosophy. There's many great philosophers. You can read Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, any of those guys, any of the great philosophers from any culture. Everybody's got their faves. But what's your personal philosophy? Your job is not to just become a carbon copy of Bruce Lee or any of these people. Even they would tell you that. Your job is to hear that wisdom, that, okay, a brilliant mind maybe have put it down and made really good sense and it inspired you, but you're not to become a religious adherent to that. You're supposed to take that information and then go, hey, I'm going to contrast and compare with other information. Oh, look at that philosophy over there. Look at that idea over there. And then I'm going to formulate my own personal philosophy of life that should have some ethics and some values. Like, what do you value? What's valuable to you? Living life, experience, whatever it is. It could be anything. There's no judgment. Whatever it is that you find valuable, you have to know what that is. But none of the things in the external world are going to actually really speak to the thing that's the most valuable, which is the fact that you, like I said, are here living, breathing and you are a miracle. The fact that you're alive and what your body does is a miracle. If you zoom in to the cellular level of your body, you'll start to realize that, as many cellular biologists have said, each cell, your body's made up of roughly about 100 trillion, thanks Bob, 100 trillion cells. Each cell is like a miniature universe. And there's a whole other dimension to that. And even on your skin, man, I watched this documentary on what kind of Star Wars-like battle is actually happening on your skin right now. Did you know that? Man, if you weren't paranoid before, you'd be paranoid as shit after that, right? Oh my God, there's like things growing and living in my skin, and then they fight other things, and there's this whole little thing happening. I'm just sitting, I didn't even notice. Yeah, it's a whole world. And so, but you weren't aware of it. That's the thing. You're trying to increase your awareness of what's happening without going insane. And this is the balance that you need to strike. So I'd recommend that for your personal philosophy. But philosophy comes from Greek. Philo and Sophia. Sophia was actually the second name of our daughter, the name of my second daughter, because Sophia is my favorite goddess, because Sophia is talking about wisdom. So philosophy means the love of wisdom. The love of wisdom. You love wisdom because you see how it benefits you in your life, and how it empowers you, and how it creates what everybody wants in life, which is joy, peace, abundance, and freedom. Everybody wants that. You all want to be happy, essentially. That word happy kind of got ruined by all those little smiley face happy pins that Walmart made. That's what they think happy is. This little fake face that's on my Facebook profile page. I can pretend to be happy to everybody when really I hate my life. Like, that's not happy. Happiness truly means truly fulfilled from within. That's happiness. So that's why the ultimate goal of happiness, when you read the Greek philosophers, the ultimate goal of philosophy was to achieve happiness. And happiness had a big description. But happiness and wisdom, to me, are synonymous. And the one thing that we do on this journey of forging our philosophy and trying to achieve happiness and abundance and freedom is we often try to escape ourselves. We try to run away from ourselves. We try to ignore those painful emotions that we feel. We try to ignore those painful thoughts that we feel. We look in the mirror. Have you ever done this drill? You take all your clothes off, you look in the mirror, and you just start looking at the different parts, and you're right away, the parts you hate are going to just start screaming at you. And you're going to be like, I can't take it anymore, right? But it's a drill that I recommend to people so that you can start to learn how to appreciate where you're at. If you should love yourself regardless of where you're at. But it's okay to have goals. It's okay to say, all right, well, I could improve there, and if I want to. I don't have to, but I could if I wanted to. But I'm going to have to be honest about that. And so I see this a lot specifically with women in martial arts, is this fear of body image, especially when they have like a male instructor, right? So there's this whole thing about, oh, do I look weird when I'm doing this thing? I don't want to look weird, and my body, I don't want to see myself in the mirror. Like, there's that, right? So after a while, I said to my wife, I'm like, you should do something just for women so that they could feel more comfortable, just because I just want them training. And my wife jumped all over that, and now she's built this women's-only martial art class in our small little island town, and it's line up around the door. Like, it's sold out, this class. And she's empowering women to a level that it makes me emotional that it's working so well, because she gave them space to be themselves. And there's no pressure of a bunch of guys in there pumping weights and this whole like animalistic thing that happens. Like, there's none of that pressure. And then what happens is those women, then they start coming and they want to train in my class. They're like, I want to learn some jiu-jitsu and some ninja stuff. I want to learn some cool stuff. And yeah, I can train with those guys. And then I got these little 130-pound women flying triangle choking these big 250-pound oaf guys. You know, but it started with that confidence. And it started with them making the decision not to just run away from when it was hard. Things are going to get hard. When you walk out this door, some hard shit's going to happen. You're going to get an email or a text message about something you now have to worry about. You're going to get home after feeling all empowered at this conference, and you're going to get hit with everything in the universe can throw at you. And you know why? It's not because you're like, oh, woe is me, FML, whatever, right? It's not that. It's because that's the challenge that you need at this time in your life so that you can grow and get stronger and have new challenges. Thank you, sir. Right? We don't always have to stay at yellow belt. We can grow. There's growth. Your plant doesn't just go, oh, okay, done. If you give it the right water, sunlight, love, Change the soil, that's right. None of this GMO crap, right? Give it good, healthy stuff, and then talk to it every day. It'll grow into this beautiful, beautiful plant, and you're the same. Okay, so you got to talk to yourself in the right way. You got to water the garden. You got to get the right kind of seeds. And I'm going to get close to finishing here. Bob, I'm going over a little bit, so nothing you can do about it. Last Samurai, one of my favorite scenes is this. The story in this film is really empowering to a martial artist because the character really quickly, he did some stuff. He was part of some pretty bad things that, the forces that they came in and killed some natives and whatnot, and he was suffering from this torment of what he had done, the inhumanity that he was a part of. And he was drinking himself to death. And then something happens, and he's supposed to go and train some soldiers to kill some samurais who they're like, oh, you're supposed to modernize and stop being samurais. And we don't want you to be samurai. We want you to serve in the Japanese military. So we're going to send some U.S. guys over there to train you how to integrate into this new structure of militarism. And we're going to get you to move away from the old samurai tradition of the warrior. And this is actually based on true historical events. And so he ends up there, and there's a battle. And then instead of killing him, the head samurai says, no, bring him to the village. I want to know my enemy. And he says to him, when he's bringing him in the village, he's like, because the Tom Cruise character, he's like, what do you want from me? Just let me go. And he's like, no, winter's coming. There's nothing you can do. The pass is going to fill up. And for now, until spring, you are here. You are here. Just kind of really emphasize that you're here. This is the challenge. Yeah, it sucks, but you're here, and there's nothing you can do about it. So let's see what you do with that. And I kind of feel like that's what we're all going through right now. It's winter in the world, and there's all these challenges, and we all want to escape them. We all want to go and meditate until we come out of our bodies and go live in some disembodied reality somewhere. We want to communicate with the Pleiadians and talk to them and see what they're up to. We want to go to some church and have some savior, coming one of these days now to save me. Like, I'll wait for some savior to come that's just so much better than me learning how to save myself. I'll wait for someone else to save me. And we want to escape. But escaping is doing yourself a great disservice, because the stripes in life are earned. They're not just given. Ask any elderly person in this room. And I mean that with an elder. An elder in our society would have been someone with experience and wisdom, and we don't listen to the elders anymore. We throw them in whatever these sanctuaries, and we walk away and we go back to texting everybody, and we just forget about the elders when there's a tremendous amount of wisdom that they would have to share to say, hey, the stripes I got are earned. I went through blood, sweat, and tears to get to this place of experiencing a rich, fulfilling life. So don't escape. There is no escape. And why would you want to? This is an adventure. That's the warrior message to me, is this is an adventure, and you need to face it with the courage of a warrior. You need the spine of a warrior to get through this ride. But if you do it, the soul level of experience that you will have, the points you're going to get, unbelievable. That's the choice. I was going to get to the difference between the mind and the brain, but actually I would just recommend you to a really good video on YouTube by Krishnamurti. Anybody know who Jiddu Krishnamurti is? He does, if you just put in Krishnamurti, brain and mind, he's got a fantastic explanation of the difference between the brain and the mind, so I'm going to let him do it. I won't do it here today, okay? The secret of light, we're talking a little bit about spirit, the spirit of the warrior. This is summed up in 2 episodes that we did on the Unslaved podcast, episode 2 and episode 20. And there's no coincidence as to why we did that number. And we have Matt Presti on from the Walter Russell Institute, and he talks about the work of the late, great Dr. Walter Russell, the secret of light, the mystery of light. It'll blow your mind. We also did another show on the sun and the conscious nature of the sun, and how even in science they're seeing that the sun is showing what we have consciousness sort of the way we feel it and experience it based on how we're built. But what's to say that whatever the sun is doing, the activity that it's doing, the influence that it has, isn't also a form of consciousness? And then can you not extrapolate that to all of nature? And then you realize we've been told this for thousands of years. So I'll leave you to check out those episodes because they're phenomenal. And then temet nosce, Latin, know thyself. The greatest philosophical words ever spoken. Know thyself and you will know the universe and the gods, is what the Oracle of Delphi said. And actually, that Delphic message and those messages were taken from the Temple of Luxor in Egypt and brought to Greece. And there's some ancient knowledge there about the process of learning and knowing thyself, the virtue of selfishness. Did he just say selfishness? Well, listen, somebody that is narcissistic and coming from the ego and is all about themselves and they don't care about anybody else, the last thing they are is conscious of a self, okay? They're totally opposite direction. That's not what's being talked about in this concept of know thyself. It's talking about what I'm saying. Because when you know yourself, you'll realize you're a microcosm of a greater macrocosm, which means by studying yourself, which is the only thing you've been given to study other than nature, that's how you tap into finding out what this divine force in the universe that's holding all this stuff together is really all about. And when you realize that you're one with that, and that actually you're whole with that, it's a holistic process. What could be more empowering than that? You feel like committing suicide? Yeah, no. You're like, no, I want the opposite. I want more life. I want to live a lively life, not a dead life. I'm not waiting to be dead anymore. And when you come against the challenges that I promise are going to come your way, hear the Count of Monte Cristo, one of my favorite stories, and I love this movie and this scene when Edmond Dantes says to this young man at his birthday toast, life is a storm, my young friend. You will bask in the sunlight one moment, be shattered on the rocks the next. What makes you a man is what you do when that storm comes. You must look into that storm and shout as you did in Rome, do your worst, for I will do mine. And some people might say, oh, that sounds kind of confrontational. But what it is it's the cry of the warrior. It's the spirit of the warrior that's saying, come on, storms. Come on, challenges. I accept. You slap the gauntlet of the chainmail glove across my face and challenge me to a duel. I accept. I run for the challenge. I don't try to avoid challenge. I want it because I value it. So you got to cultivate this spirit. You have to put your spiritual armor on, the immune system of your consciousness on, and then go after it. When was the last time you did something for the first time? If it's your first time at this conference, good for you. You just did something for the first time. But when was the last time you did something for the first time? Ask yourself. You don't have to answer me. You're talking to yourself. This is a personal presentation. And lastly, freedom is the goal. So stare the challenges in the face, overcome them internally, and freedom is yours. So go and take it. There's no such thing. People can put you in prisons. They can tie you up. They can have restricting laws. But freedom exists internally. It's attitudinal. It's the attitude by which you approach life. We've been fighting against tyrants and evil and sickness and disease and all this stuff for thousands of years. No matter where you look in history, you're going to find this struggle. So freedom, don't wait around for the system in the world to give you freedom. Freedom is, just don't hold your breath. Come on, seriously. We're all going to work towards it. I'm not saying drop the ball. I'm just saying freedom can happen right here, right now. Take it. It's yours. Thank you very much.
David Whitehead, ladies and gentlemen.